Hello and welcome to video number 20, the last video. You have networks and data security. My name is Chris. Alright, in this video we're going to recognize the importance of verifying the legal and legislative requirements of securing information. Now, as mentioned in the previous video, your rights as a consumer, client, employee, person in the digital world are governed by a few specific acts that were only brought into action in the last, say, 10 or 15 years. The acts that give you rights to privacy, rights to the collection and use of your information, rights to the retention of this information, and it's your assurance of the means by which it is destroyed. Now, because this video's direction is primarily with respect to the collection and storage of your information, those are the two topics that we're going to be covering. So before we even get into the retention or the securing of data, let's talk about the means by which it's collected and why. Now, before collecting any information, a business is supposed to determine if it fits or suits a particular business need. If the reason they're collecting it doesn't justify the information that they're collecting, they shouldn't be taking it in the first place. It's like asking you what sorts of TV stations that you've subscribed to in the last 10 years. People even do that still. But during the process of that, they also take in your credit bureau and to determine how many different types of credit cards you've got. Zero to do with the question and purpose that the initial point of contact and collection is for. And then once the particular need or purpose of that collection has been fulfilled, once the use of that information has been realized, the information should be sterilized and destroyed. Now, in certain circumstances, this isn't always the case, especially when it comes to federal bodies, like, say, your taxes. You're supposed to, as a citizen who files taxes, you're supposed to retain your documents and records for up to 7 years. You're also supposed to do this for bills that you've paid, utilities and services, credit card payments, loans, especially the ones that you've paid off. You should be keeping records of these things for a certain amount of time in the event of audit. Right? So even you as the consumer have certain obligations or expectations when it comes to the retention of data. Do you keep it in a filing cabinet or do you keep it on the counter like I do because nobody ever comes to your house and you have nothing to worry about? I like the quiet. So a company has taken your information in, you've willingly given them all the information about you, your name, age, birth date, address, where you work, blood type, number of kids, cars that you drive, whether the lights are on or not. Even though all the information that they've asked for, great. Now, how do they store it or how should they store it? There's no one-size-fits-all rule when it comes to how to store and retain information, let alone how to transport it. Now, there are some regulations in place that prevent or are supposed to prevent businesses from retaining your information longer than required or necessary, and that doing so longer than the legislation, it puts them at risk of fines. They're retaining and holding on to information that they no longer have a use for outside of the window of its usage and relevance. But holding on to information, securing it, isn't the only thing a company needs to do. They also need to make sure that they don't hold on to it for longer than necessary, or longer than they're supposed to by law. Hefty fines and charges and whatnot can be brought down on any company found in breach of these sorts of regulations. The whole point is to hold them accountable for the ways that they are storing and using your information, but also for the risks that they take with the information too. Because you as the consumer, as the employee, what have you, are putting trust and faith into them to protect the information that you are giving them. Your private information that you would otherwise be keeping and holding to yourself. You're putting trust and faith into them to keep it safe. So in the event that they don't, they're held accountable, which is a good thing. Take that, Cambridge Analytica. How should data be stored? That depends on the kind of information. Personally identifiable information can be held in two different forms. Physical copies, that's on paper at your bank. Your personal information, just to identify you as a client of theirs, is one thing, but the accounts that you hold, the money you have, investments that you've made, assets in your name, the sorts of agreements and contracts that you've established and made with them, all of these things can be used to either A, extort something out of you, or B, steal your identity. This information that a bank holds, for example, could be used to give somebody access to your accounts with that bank. If you know enough about the accounts, you can be anybody when you phone in or get access to it online. You can attach an account in 2 minutes flat, transfer everything out. It's very easy to do if you know enough about a person. This sounds like I've done it before, tried to do it, and know better than I should. I don't. I'm just saying it would be easy to do, which is why they keep things secure. Now, the example given in the documentation for this lesson is the electronic payment information on a portable drive must be secured, that no patient data exists on an unsecured drive. That isn't always the case because patient data doesn't always only exist in digital media. Again, the hard copies. There are still two systems in place. Hard copies and digital. Now, when it comes to digital, yes, it is not only more important that data is secured or encrypted or what have you in those situations, but it's also more strictly governed. So when it comes to personal information, there are specific laws and legislations in place that are intended to legally prevent a company from transmitting your information by email. It doesn't matter what kind of system they have in place or how good their encryption is. Personal information is not to be sent by email whatsoever. Having USB flash drives and other removable media is no longer allowed in the workplace, for example, because you can easily plug these things in, copy paste things over, walk out with it. Nobody would know, nobody would be the wiser. Some of the higher end business centers and environments and whatnot have monitoring in place to detect when these devices are inserted, even if they won't let you copy anything to it, to still know when somebody's trying to subvert the security of the system to steal information. So when it comes to the storage of media on a digital platform, securing the data is very important. One is through the use of encryption. Having keys that are synchronized to the system that they're on, for example, so the data that's stolen can't be used or viewed or opened anywhere else. Having different security systems in place to prevent the copying, to prevent the duplication of data is also important. Which is why it is, in some way or another, the business's responsibility to make sure that anyone who's given access to certain sorts of information and systems is personally identifiable. Hiring the right people to do the job is the first step, right? Making sure that people are trained well in the procedures and methods is the next. Ensuring that they follow these legislations is the third. And then when everything's said and done, if you've done everything you can and something still goes wrong, well, it sucks, but that's when money buys happiness. Not happiness, really. It just buys silence. Sometimes that's better. Anyway, this wraps it up for video number 20, the last video in the series for networks and data security. Again, my name is Chris. This has been great. I've learned a lot through the semester, having to teach myself an excellent use of Google, and I've discovered a lot of new different ideas, different responsibilities that I wasn't previously aware of. Well, I think I've worn a tie more this semester than I have at all in the last 10 years. Did you notice it's blue this time? It's not gray? Yeah. I think my producer over here, the one that I keep talking to in my videos, that makes all the adulting decisions for me. This is Valkyrie. She does all the hard work. Woo! I'm done! I'm done! All right! It's time to get hammered!